Marched to death, screamed the headline after two soldiers collapsed and died as they took part in a gruelling Special Forces selection process on one of the hottest days of the year. One of the men has been named as Lance Corporal Craig Roberts, a maths teacher from Lewisham. The third serviceman is in a serious condition in hospital. Police and the Ministry of Defence are investigating what happened during the exercise on the Brecon Beacons. Our correspondent, Ciaran Jenkins, is there. Ciaran.
Well, this is the base from where people head off for Pen y Fan, which is one of the highest mountains in Wales. And on Saturday, what was happening here was a military exercise that quickly became a full-blown emergency. What we think was going on was an SAS selection process for Army reservists. We think it was the beginning of that process. And what's not yet clear is how well prepared these reservists were, how well supported they were for what would have been an incredibly tough challenge on an extremely hot day. In this heat, just walking these mountains is grueling work. But on Saturday afternoon, the hottest of the year so far, ramblers saw reservists in army fatigues run past them. A military exercise which somehow resulted in 2 fatalities. One of them named tonight as Lance Corporal Craig Roberts.
Well, I've seen a lot of ambulances around and police coming in and out. Well, I knew there was something wrong. It was obvious, you know, that when the ambulances are flying up and down.
With a magazine, load!
The exercises are thought to have been part of an SAS selection process for reservists. This can involve carrying heavy packs over long distances in extreme conditions. The Ministry of Defence, however, wouldn't comment on the nature of this weekend's training. Details of what actually happened out here are patchy at best. What we do know is that it was searingly hot and that these exercises are seriously tough. Injuries and exhaustion are not uncommon, but what is uncommon is for 2 people to lose their lives. A third reservist is still being treated in hospital. A spokesperson for the MOD said accidents are tragic but rare and promised a thorough investigation.
So you're feeling incredibly fatigued all the way through. And then in addition to that, there's the mental challenge of having to navigate.
Chris Hunter is ex-Special Forces. He trained here in the Brecon Beacons before being deployed to Iraq.
There is a huge onus on the military to make sure that it does have robust, resilient fighting men and women, because if they're operating in somewhere like Afghanistan, where it's 50 degrees Celsius in the midday sun, then they need to make sure that they can operate in those environments, that they can actually carry the weights, that they can travel over the mountains in those environments. And the only way to do that is to physically practice it beforehand.
Are you convinced that the safety net is there?
Realistically, you know, there's a great deal of medical procedures and safety cover in place. And I think the fact that, you know, we've been training in these hills for decades and we very rarely hear of incidents like this suggests that actually, you know, the procedures are usually very, very good.
But earlier this year, these mountains claimed another serviceman's life. Army Captain Rob Carnegie died here in freezing conditions. The MOD said tonight his death was not linked to military training. Already, though, there are calls for lessons to be quickly learned.
These people are prepared to serve their country and to make the ultimate sacrifice. But what we need to ensure is that any training that's part of this process takes account of their welfare and minimises the risk. I think eliminating risk altogether.
Temperatures soared again today as the unanswered questions mount. Just how could a single military exercise go so horribly wrong?